How you doing?
I'm doing great. Nice to see you, Randy.
Nice to be seen. So for those watching, sorry we had a little scheduling conflict, so we pushed from Wednesday till today. So for those that it goofed up, I apologize, but certainly you can see it on the repost if you're not watching live. Totally psyched to have Paul Hunter with us today. He's SVP and Managing Director at HPE, and certainly has a lot on his plate. And look forward to learning a lot and having you share some good content with us.
Yeah, delighted to be with you. And the apologies mine. I think it was my mess up that
That's all
didn't
right. Oh,
turn
yeah,
up at the
I'll
right
fall on the
time on
sword.
Wednesday. No, I think it's my sort to fall on.
I'll fall on the sword. Don't worry about it. And I'm actually in Alabama. We have our opening weekend this weekend, so I'm in the Marriott Hotel here. So that's my background. So by way of introduction, I've got a few friends. Patrick Osborne, who was SVP of the Storage BU at HPE, says. Okay, North America CRO, former channel chief and world's most dangerous man on two wheels. Paul Hunter is leading the GTM charge for HPE's pivot to an as a service cloud company. Paul and his team are changing the way customers consume and manage infrastructure with HPE GreenLake. CR Howdyshell, CEO of Advisix, says for HPE, no one better to lead the sales charge than Paul Hunter. He totally understands the channel from a value and scalability perspective. He knows the partners who have invested for the long run with HPE. Additionally, he is committed to executing with the channel on GreenLake and is engaged with the key partners in the HPE ecosystem. That makes it easy for partners to co-invest in the consumption business. I think I saw they just Advisix just got some big Green Lake Partner of the Year award or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. They're one of the rockstar partners, and CR's been a big advocate, leading the charge from the front. So yeah, thank you to his
Awesome.
compliment. But he's earned all the recognition.
Very good. And Sean Kearns, so the distributor side, CEO
Yeah,
Aero Electronics. I've always appreciated the intellect that Paul brings to his capacity as a leader. I think he's done a nice job taking the lessons of his career journey to each successive role in a way that's apparent to the HPE channel. So that's really good. And then I almost forgot, I got from Antonio last minute on Wednesday. Antonio Neri, CEO, love Antonio, says Paul Hunter is a man of many tricks, but he sure knows how to sell. That's pretty cool.
that's nice. He didn't mention that to me when I saw him yesterday, but there we go.
Awesome. And unfortunately, you and I never had a chance to overlap when I was running the Americas business and the US business at the time, which was ESSN, now HPE. You were running the PSG business over in the UK, but
Yeah.
certainly you have a great reputation. Obviously, the channel loves you, the HP team and customers and partners. And, I can totally appreciate how much you have your hands full, but you seem to continue to survive and thrive given your 21 years at HP. So congratulations for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it's been a joy. It was one of the joys of my career has been working with partners. I did it right from the very start. It was when I joined Compaq back in the day, which is it's actually 27
Yeah.
years ago now. Um, that was one of the first things you did was go and spend some time with the partners. And I was covering finance, so Computer Center and Richard Archer, and there's a
There
whole
you go.
cast of characters there.
Awesome. And almost left out, we're sponsored today by Gong, who's our revenue intelligence sponsor of Sales Community. But as sales tools evolve, they definitely have a lot of great offerings and just a lot of unique IP and offerings to help sellers sell more. And for those that are members of Sales Community, thanks so much. If you are not, you can go to salescommunity.com and you can look in the upper left-hand corner. There's a tab that says winter free, so you can use that for the free one, or there's another one if you want to pay for some reason. And Tucker just posted it, and Tucker is behind the scenes here doing the heavy lifting as always. So Tucker, thanks so much for that. So also just for introduction, so your interest besides work and family, you also do triathlons. How the
Yeah.
heck, how the heck you have time to do that?
Well, that's the commute to work. So sometimes I run and get the train, and sometimes I ride, and sometimes I do neither of those, both of those things. So yeah, no, it's just a way of making sure that all my life isn't consumed by either my family or work.
There you go. All very, very important for sure. And not just say it, but lead by example. So let's jump in. So I think your first job was in sales at NCR back in 1991.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I started as a sales trainee. In the UK at the time, we had these college degrees where, for the 1 year out of the 4 years you worked, and I worked as an order analyst of all things at NCR,
Wow,
and the people that seemed to be having the most fun were the sales team. So I thought, well, maybe I'll give that a go when I come back.
awesome. Really good. And then maybe quickly just go through your career from there.
Yeah, so I was at NCR for best part of 4 or 5 years. It was also the time where AT&T bought NCR, so it was at one point it was AT&T Global Solutions, and
Oh,
then subsequently divested them again. So we went through that roller coaster. And then I was recruited by one of my prior sales managers from NCR to go and work at Compaq in the sort of mid 90s. And that was when Compaq were, in the UK, it was a kind of $1 billion business, but it didn't have a big sales team, kind of, 30 or 40 end user sales reps, and maybe 15 people running the partners and retail. So I was recruited. In fact, I worked with a guy called Eric Gale. So Eric is the AWS country manager for Canada.
wow.
And I recently saw him on my trip to Canada. It was great to see him. So Eric recruited me. I also had a sales manager I really looked up to that went to Compaq, and I kind of had three stints at before in my time at HP and Compaq. One, I was a sales rep selling to financial customers, essentially international banks. I then did sort of sales management roles in financial services, selling to banks, leading teams there, and it was kind of the sort of infrastructure business. Then I moved to the what at the time was the dark side, the PC business. So I had sort of every role working for the general manager, and then eventually became the general manager for the PC business. And then that also had the print business included as well at some point. And then in 2014, I moved to the US. I've had three jobs in the US. I was chief of staff to the CEO for 3 years. I led partner sales for 2.5 years, and I lead North America, and I'm 2.5 years into that role.
Wow, that's great. And so chief of staff, that was for Meg, right?
Yeah, and in fact, I see Larry Irvin is on the chat, and so I came across Larry when I was chief of staff for Meg, and he was leading new business sales, and did a very nice job of it. Very talented sales leader.
Wow. So that'd be pretty cool. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot you can't talk about, but you're kind of had a catbird seat there with Meg going through lots of change and
Yeah, yeah, no, it was. I mean, it's a really weird job, chief of staff to a CEO, and each chief of staff job just depends on who the CEO is. So, I was fortunate in that Meg was, a very experienced CEO, and so she really took advantage of using a chief of staff. And to British people, like they would say, what are you doing? You're carrying her bags, and it's like, no, there's a bit more to it than that. But I went from kind of leading a decent sized business in the UK and Ireland. That was at the time a $3 billion business, and I had sort of 400 to 500 people working in the team. And then when I moved to the US as the chief of staff, I was neither the chief and I didn't have any staff, so it was about 4 people. And I was I sort of kind of thought my opinion was important, but found out it really wasn't. And nor was it eagerly sought. I learned a huge amount. It's a
uh,
development job inside HPE. So
right.
all of the people that succeeded me are now all doing really successful things. One's the CEO over Aruba. One is one of the senior leaders in the storage business, and now the country manager for Ireland is the new chief of staff for Antonio. So it was an incredible job, really, really incredible. And I've got lots of stories, and it was not what you expected of it. I thought that when I came over, I would sort of earn personal trust really quickly, and professional trust would take quite a long time, and it was the inverse of that. Professional trust came very quickly. Personal trust took a lot longer. Um, yeah, no, I learned a lot, and you're in every meeting the CEO's in, bar the one-to-ones, and so I was in board meetings, I was in strategy meetings, and so you build up a Rolodex of experiences of what you've seen the CEO do in certain
Yeah,
situations, and it just gives you a really good sense of how to get things done in big companies.
that's great. And you had probably fair share of meetings at Princeton, where she went, and down in Alabama, probably too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we went to Alabama.
Actually,
Uh, Yeah, exactly. And um, Meg has she's she puts a lot of store in her family, and spends time with them. So yeah, we would be in Alabama, but we would be throughout. In fact, that was one of kind of our projects. Was Meg would sort of say, look, if she had an idea and she didn't want to spin up a whole host of people in the company, she would essentially say, Paul, look, can you see whether you can make this idea come to life? And so that's what I'd go away and do. And in partnership with Dan Belanger, one of the projects was called the State Project, and essentially the idea was you'd have some sales leaders that would manage a state that we sort of maybe thought were underserved. One of which was Alabama. So we had at that time 5 or 6 leaders that ran six states, and Dan was at the forefront of it, and Dan would have to report out and say how we're doing, and it was a lot of fun.
yeah, that's great. So we have some commentary here. So for those watching, you can either hear us or see us. We cannot see you. But whatever you post, feel free to have any comments or questions. Alan Mueller says, hello there, excited to be here. I think she's with Emissary. I should remember, but
Oh, really? Was talking about them last night.
yeah,
Oh, in fact, I was
that's,
talking about Alan last night. There's a
yeah.
connection I didn't expect
There
to
you go.
make.
Yeah, and it's actually really cool. So they've got a bench of ex kind of CXOs that have recently departed within 18 months, and it's a who's who of
Yeah,
companies. And matter of fact, we had, I think it was like a State Street or Capital One. We had actually had some of your folks running with like a year or so ago as a pilot. I don't even know what happened, but uh,
it came up last night in conversation. So David Head, who used to be the chief marketing officer for Silver Peak, which was the SD-WAN company we bought, used to use Alan's services, and then independent of that, Leslie Canning, who runs sales enablement, was also at the table, and we are using Emissary for some of our customer engagements, and was with a lot of plaudits. So it was interesting joining the dots there. But yeah, no, that's a fabulous service, and we've used it on many occasions and are looking to actually do more with it. So there's an
yeah,
opportunity.
there was yeah. So Alan, just going back, I think a year or so ago, I think through George Hope in the channel, we had some things going on. But anyway,
Oh,
I, I,
interesting.
I will move on. So Larry, we posted that. Larry, thanks for chiming in. Terry Richardson, this is impressive seeing two former bosses in this podcast. We'll enjoy this one. So all right, Terry, feel free to ask any questions, but probably what we know about the channel, we probably learned from you.
That's most likely.
And Jesse asked the question, should sales leaders help their sales development teams bail themselves out of LinkedIn or Google jail? So I think what he probably refers to there is maybe where people are, if they maybe they get shut down. I guess two different contexts. One is if you do too much and you get shut down, could be one. Or Tucker just chimed in here, email spamming for Google. So I guess it's probably around maybe I'll maybe take a leap. Kind of best practices maybe that you guys have about doing cold outreach, because a lot of the traditional ways with some of the LinkedIn and some of the Google can get you shut down.
Yeah, so we use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. That's one of the suite of sales tools we provide our sales teams. We also use other tools as well. So we found LinkedIn Sales Navigator to be reasonably valuable, quite useful. I use LinkedIn because sometimes you get more traction with your own teams on LinkedIn than you do using some of the internal tools. So it's just a good way to connect with a broader community and keep in touch with people.
Yeah, I was actually talking to coincidentally yesterday, Alyssa, who runs, I think, global sales there for Sales Navigator and kind of does enterprise ELAs. And she said, actually, believe it or not, obviously you've got a good handle on it, but she said one of their opportunities are that sales leaders aren't really using it as much. And I said, for me, for sales community, I've got, you, and thanks for being on my advisory board as well. Sorry, I should have said that in the beginning, but kind of the advisory board members, I've got them tagged in the sales community so that, for me, for my LinkedIn, so that way that feed, if you post something, that's going to come up faster than somebody that I don't know at all. And then if you want to do any outreach or any cadence of outreach, it's just really amazing. I was just amazed that, more leaders aren't totally using it.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's one of those. LinkedIn is one. I mean, when I first came to the US and was doing the sort of channel role, I had someone that was sort of giving me some advice on social media, and I sort of poo-pooed it a little bit. I'm not. I don't use Instagram and Facebook regularly for my personal life. So, and I was using LinkedIn just for sort of a professional network and keeping contacts essentially, but she encouraged me, look, you can build up really good communities, you can really build up some good
Yeah.
conversations, and I found that very much to be the case. So I actually use it quite a lot more than I anticipated. I sort of review it pretty frequently. The hard thing with it is also messages. Now messages now is becoming, it's hard to keep on top of them, but
Oh,
the
yeah.
actual the posting and the interaction on the posts I find to be very valuable.
Yeah, a lot of times too. I think people, you probably have it's more likely, given spam and everything else and junk, you probably have a better chance of getting through on LinkedIn than you do
Yeah.
regular email these
Yeah,
days.
yeah, no, exactly. And our sales teams have been using it pretty effectively as well. The other thing I think is quite surprising about, well, I found surprising is you get access to a pretty decent audience,
Yeah,
and yeah, there's a lot of customers around. I mean, there's a lot that for the partner community, I would say it's probably the most effective tool that we've got for communicating with our partners. A lot of interaction. You get a lot of unfiltered feedback, which is really helpful as well. It doesn't go through five layers of sales management before you get the filtered piece of information. It just comes direct to you. So, particularly for the partner community, I find it really valuable. So yeah, we use it a lot. I use it a lot.
awesome. And just to follow up, what happens when you hit the limit? So that might be a little bit more in the weeds than probably familiar with. And then I guess they're from the emissary side. Jade and Alan chime back in. Yes, hello from emissary. Oh my, sounds like I need to find out about these conversations. Yes, sounds like it for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
don't worry, we'll be in touch.
there you go. So moving on. So then your kind of role as channel chief. I mean, HP's probably been forever the premier trusted company. From my days, HPE, channel partners say, hey, we can trust, we can rely. They're not going to take deals direct. There's going to be discipline. We're going to have a strong margin profile, which really works out well.
Yeah.
Any other kind of highlights that you'd bring relative to channel at HP?
Well, I mean, partners are our strategy. I mean, when you compare how we stand up against some of our direct competitors, we have a smaller sales force, and we do that deliberately because we spend a lot of money on our partners. So it's us and our partners versus a direct competitor. And we consider the money that we invest in our partners to be an extension of our sales team. So it's a deliberate strategy on our behalf, and one that's based on the principle that our partners, in many instances, have the most intimate relationships with their customers: proximity, locality, knowledge, relationships, and it's at scale. So rather than trying to build that ourselves with our own sales team, we choose to go to market through partners, which is, I think, is probably, it's a more nuanced go to market, and it's one you have to be careful with, be very thoughtful with. I mean, Terry's on the chat, so as you say, we take our learnings from Terry. But it's you have to earn your trust, and it's easy to destroy it. But it's been very successful for us in the past, and now really the priority has been is how do we, with our partners, evolve what we sell and how we sell, and move to this essentially ARR and cloud services model. That's the drive, and partners like AdviseX and others are proving that that's really beneficial because they're changing their valuations.
Yeah, that's great. I was always amazed. I'm sure you know Alfredo, right? Runs Latin America.
Yeah,
I
saw
mean,
him this week.
his
That's
mo-
who that's who I saw in the elevator.
oh,
That
okay.
said he used to work for you, Alfredo.
All right.
Yes,
But it's
he's
just
over.
amazing his model and kind of just let me. You have all these. I mean, United States is tough, but Latin America, all these different countries, all different languages. I mean, the way he has that machine rigged on the channel side is just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, he is a master. When we look at essentially new portfolio adoption on behalf of partners, Latin America nearly always is at the front of the pack. And he's got a really small team of people, but he's got a really vibrant, healthy, and growing business. So, yeah, we had a sales leadership meeting this week with my boss, and Alfredo runs not only Latin America, he also runs Southern Europe as well. So
Oh wow.
he's kind of got compare and contrast between the two regions, but he's a past master when it comes to partner enablement, sales enablement.
Yeah.
He generally is at the front of the pack.
Yeah, amazing. It's done so great for so long.
Yeah.
So we have a question from Ryan, sort of off topic. Curious to hear both your thoughts, given the economic turbulence since COVID-19 and more recently the downturn in the tech sector. How do you see tech changing in the next 1 to 2 years in tech sales? I'll take a stab at it first. So I think a lot of companies that do layoffs just don't have proper performance management. So I think it's kind of a convenient way to do that. So that's kind of one perspective maybe on the downturn. And then I think tech changing, we haven't talked about it yet, but I think it's all around kind of what's the value that you're providing. And you could have two companies selling the same thing, one that does value selling well, meaning if you bump into the elevator with the CFO who's a customer you're trying to sell to, one company's probably going to talk about speeds and feeds and stuff a CFO doesn't care about. Another company will talk about here's how we're going to help you generate revenue. Here's how we're going to help you save money. That company will get the deal. So on the one hand, there might be something of a downturn, but I think those companies that are strong on the go-to-market side and evolving will do really well. And I think tech sales has a very, very bright future. What are your thoughts, Paul?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the news is coming with some of the tech layoffs, but I think part of the story that's also missing is the tech hiring. I mean, the tech hiring in the past 2 years has far outweighed the layoffs. So, I mean, there's a shortage of talent, not an excess of it. So it's very much um, a buyer's market in terms of, or a seller's market in terms of, if you're talented, there's a lot of demand for your skills. So I think that will just continue. I don't see any slowdown in that. And then to your point, well, what does the outlook look like? It looks pretty good. I mean, yeah, that we've got a bit more economic uncertainty, and I think we see that in our customers. Our customers are therefore prioritizing spend, but the investments that get made in technology and technology services have continued to grow. It's the lifeblood of every company, and so it's a great market to be in.
Absolutely. So, Ryan, thanks for that. So, any others, feel free to chime in with any other questions as well. So, obviously, you got a big job, a lot going on. So, maybe kind of, I don't know if you can explain briefly kind of what do you actually do? Uh,
That's a good question. I was with a customer last week, and he actually, we were walking along, and he said, "What do you actually do?" I was like, "That's a good question." So, I lead North America sales, and we kind of split it up into. I've got 5 leaders who own customer segments. I've got essentially the whole of the US and Canadian market split up into big customers and smaller customers and public sector business. And then I've got 3 leaders who own parts of our portfolio. So that's storage and data, AI, and cloud. And then a leader for the partner business, a guy by the name of Phil Soper, and someone who helps with strategy and planning for how do we make sure that we put our salespeople in the right places to capture the opportunity that we think is ahead of us. So um, I own the number for the 25% of the company, and it's my job to, along with those of everyone in the team, to grow the business in both dimensions, both in terms
Yeah.
of revenue and orders and margin.
Are you allowed to say kind of revenue? Any revenue numbers? Obviously,
Well,
probably previous, not.
it gets reported, so it gets reported externally. So we're a rough order of magnitude. We're an $8 billion business in North America, and we've been growing for the last 2 years, and it's been a very healthy business. So it's sort of more or less in line with the company. The company has performed pretty well over the last 2 years as well. So we've been expanding margins and producing more cash and growing, and that's our commitment to our shareholders for next year as well.
Awesome. And I think another pillar, we should talk about the channel partners, but probably, tied for first or a close second is the pre-sales resources. A lot of companies call them SEs. HP, I still say we call them solution architects, but
Yeah.
I was always amazed. You have, a lot of times you have sales, sales reps, sales managers can change accounts and territories and all that, but the longevity of the solution architects that have been calling on the same accounts, that really have those trusted relationships, that really are trusted, oftentimes even more so than the sales teams are. I mean, that Scott Wood had done that
Yeah,
for a
he
long
did.
time. Now he's doing it kind of, I think, Green Lake, but I mean, that's just such a core pillar for the company, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly. So roughly 50% of our team are technical experts. You call them solution architects. We call them solution architects as well. And again, they come in kind of 2 dimensions. One is the ones that know and have strong relationships with a customer or an industry, and they know everything about that customer. They know what the application landscape looks like. They generally have got sponsors within the teams that give them a lot of information as to what the future looks like. And then the other dimension is we've got areas of our portfolio where we need expertise. Increasingly workloads as it relates to cloud or data or AI. Those are the areas now that we are essentially hiring. We're hiring SAs in those areas because we're getting our customers want to talk to us about machine learning. They don't want to talk to us as much about what's the underlying memory architecture, although
Right.
some of them do want to do that.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah, totally. So our title topic today is reconfiguring and evolving sales teams. So that probably also plays into kind of some of your challenges. So I would imagine kind of one of the, as you evolve the sales teams, kind of the first domino that kind of falls is kind of how your portfolio is shifting, because you have to figure out what you're selling before you figure out how you're going to sell it. So maybe talk a little bit about that portfolio shift and obviously Green Lake and as a service offerings.
Yeah. So we are essentially moving from a company that was infrastructure and hardware led with services attached to that hardware. And now we are a cloud company that sells services that pull through hardware in some instances, not all now. And that's a pretty significant change. And obviously the balance of those 2 businesses changes over time. And the cloud services business, I mean, the public data now, as we had $2.5 billion of orders in 2022, was pretty much a doubling of the business year on year, and the same is true in North America. But whilst you've got $2.5 billion of cloud orders, you still need to deliver the results for the the compute, storage, networking, and attached services business. So it's evolving the mix of cloud service and what we would sort of think as more traditional capex sales.
So then based on that, then kind of which is shift you have to make in terms of the go to market and sales teams.
Yeah, so we're getting, I mean, once you get into cloud, I mean, there's a sort of infrastructure as a service, which is pretty straightforward, providing compute and storage and as a service and letting customers consume it as they want to. That's pretty straightforward. But you soon get into workloads. Those workloads tend to be more specialist, and they're the people that are making decisions on where to put a workload and what that looks like tend to be line of business people. We've got a pretty sort of evolving AI proposition, which we've been bolstering with software acquisitions, and it's based on helping customers deploy machine learning models. The buyers for learning model deployments are not infrastructure leaders; they are data science officers. So we have to be able to speak to data science officers, and that's a very different proposition to speaking to someone that runs applications or infrastructure.
Yeah, and some of those that are the new lead, I guess if you got kind of line of business folks that are different from the traditional CIO, CTO, are you then kind of evolving your hiring profile that if you have folks that happen to have those level of relationships as opposed to the IT ones that you might have wanted 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, that's it. You've well said. There's a couple of dimensions to which we need more expertise. One is you still need technology expertise, and actually the requirement for that is increasing, not decreasing. The level of expertise is expected of our salespeople. The bar is getting raised higher and higher because
Mhm.
all of our customers now have an opinion about technology. It's not just the IT department. The line of business,
Yeah,
in some instances, more informed than the IT function. So the sellers have to be more capable in terms of their technical knowledge, but we also need people that can talk about machine learning models and artificial intelligence. And it is very easy to get out of your depth very quickly. And so we're finding that we're hiring people that have grown up at college, know how to program a neural network, understand what deep learning is and the difference between that and machine learning, et cetera, et cetera. And so we are hiring people both from college and with some experience that have a much more intimate in their understanding of data and how to use it and the insights that can be gained and how it's scaled.
that's great. So if I'm graduating college and I just heard you say, hey, you have some openings. Kind of what type of openings do you have, and how can I find out about those?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you for that. I mean, we
Yeah.
are hiring we call them early career hires, essentially people that are out of college or have had a few years experience, and we're hiring them all the time now. So we have a new HQ based out of Houston. You're probably aware that we moved our headquarters from Palo Alto to Houston.
Yeah.
So we have a brand new campus there, and we do all of our early career hiring in Houston. It doesn't mean that's where you end up being for the rest of your life, but it's where you start your career in HPE. And we will take people from a mixture of backgrounds. They don't have to be college hires. We also take people that are coming out of the armed services. We take people and consider them for apprenticeships. So we're looking for people with a fabulous attitude. And to my experience, that's probably the most important attribute is the attitude. We can teach, how to sell. We can teach how technology works. We can do all of that, but people have got the great attitude. They want to learn. They want to be successful. They want to apply themselves. Then we're a good fit for them.
Great. And then what about as opposed to early in career, maybe middle or later in career, kind of some of those more experienced season roles? What type of openings do you have there?
Yeah, so we're hiring particularly in the data and storage side. So one of the sales leaders, Adnan Bhutta, leads our data and storage team, and we're actively hiring. It's an area that we're investing in. We see good growth, but we're also hiring in the AI and data science area as well. As I said, we made several software acquisitions, so we have a proposition to customers that helps them to deploy machine learning models using open source tools and our services, and that's really starting to gain traction, and we need new people for that. And then we just continue to look to hire talent as well. I think that's something that all great sales teams are continuously on the lookout for. How do you bring in people that raise the bar for the people that are there and set some different expectations? So we're all encouraged and to nurture talent, external talent and internal talent. And I'd probably say the balance is that we tend to promote from within 4 out of 5 times, and then the remaining 20% we look to hire externally.
Gotcha. Great. So, compensation drives behavior. So you've got new behavior, you have new offerings, which have kind of drive new go-to-market, new behavior. So then have you had to kind of evolve the compensation model?
Yeah,
To,
yeah, very much so. And I mean, I've worked in the company for a long time, 27 years. So I sort of consider I know the company very well and know its good points and its bad points. And one of the great aspects to HPE is, I mean, it's the founding father of Silicon Valley. So we've been around for over 80 years. And if you're a successful company for 80 years, you have to continually reinvent yourself. And I think that's one of the, it's one of the strengths of the company is we're consistently always reinventing ourselves. But compensation plays a big part of it. And so the natural tendency of it, I think, of most sales teams is to continue doing what you've done in the past. And to your point, if you want to change behavior, you have to change compensation. And so we've had our cloud offerings as an increasingly large part of our compensation. It kind of started as of a third, and now over time it's enlarged to 2/3. We had to kind of pull that lever harder and harder to get the attention of our sales teams to retire quota in a way it's frankly harder. The sales cycles are longer, they're more complex, they're more sophisticated. Generally, it involves different decision makers to the ones that we've been attached to when you're
yeah,
renewing infrastructure. So we've pulled that lever increasingly over the last 3-4 years.
yeah, that's great. And then you've been on the road a bit, I saw. So you had a public sector partner summit a couple weeks ago. How was that?
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So we had close to 500 people in
Uh,
DC. Saw a lot of old faces. Sarah Miles from Milestone and Kelly Ireland was there, and cast a lot of friends and a lot of new people as well. Spent some time with Craig Abbott as well from Kerasoft, and it was very successful. I mean, the partners were in high spirits. They are pretty excited about the year ahead. And we spent a lot of time talking to them about cloud services, obviously. We have some pretty strong offers for public sector, both federal, but also the state and local business. And, people like, Milestone, they've closed some fabulous consumption deals. So they're really sort of grabbing our new portfolio and
yeah.
leading with it.
That's great. And it's got to be awesome working with Antonio. Way back when I was there, we were peers. So he's CEO, now I'm me. So I don't know what that says about me, but he was always kind of hands-on, always responsive, customers, partners, kind of always had a great handle on the business then when he was doing the services. So he must be great to work with.
Yeah, he's absolutely amazing. So I wasn't chief of staff for him, but when I was chief of staff for the CEO, he was one of the direct reports. And one of the things you learn in a chief of staff job, it's not enough to make the principal successful. You've got to make the principal and their team successful. So I spent quite a lot of time with Antonio, and he's got an ability to return a communication like no one I know. Like, I don't understand how he does it. So he's in meetings all day, but he's also permanently responding to his email. And participating in the meeting. So we had a meet. I spent two hours with him yesterday. We had a customer meeting and we had a leadership meeting. And at the same time, he's also responding to escalations and it's him. It's not
Yeah,
someone else. I mean, it's not someone using his email. It's him. And so I don't know how he manages to do it, but he's incredibly responsive. And the other thing that he's very partner centric. So um, Jack Margosian is an example. I spent some time with Jack,
Comport.
in
Yep.
this, yeah, from Comport, and Jack wanted to bring something to Antonio's attention. I said, yeah, just drop him a note, and Jack
Yeah.
sends him a note. Sure enough, Antonio jumps on the phone. It's as easy as that. I mean,
Yeah.
and again, I think it's one of the good things about the culture. We don't get defensive about like speaking to our CEO, and he positively encourages it. there's always some ramifications at some point, but he's very valuable, and he's very partner centric, and he fixes things quickly.
Yeah, he's also a vouch for Jack skiing. Pre-COVID, I used to do some partner trips with HP, and we had, I think it was Peter Quirk, Patrick Osborne, Jack and Patrick, I think, decided to peel off, and they went somewhere. I guess snow was soft or something happens, and before you know it, an hour later, Jack's full cast.
Yeah, Jack sort of seems to be injuring himself. I mean, I've got a reputation for injuring myself, but I quite often see Jack, and as you say, he's always in a cast, or I think one time a cab ran over his foot or something. So like, it's like, be careful, Jack. You look after
Can't
yourself.
make it up. Yeah, you're in the city. You don't know. So Terry, I don't know if it's okay to post this or not. So all in good jest. Terry says, Randy, with all the new people HP now, might be time for you to attend the next HP sales meeting, deliver your make more sales calls chant. So, interesting side note, you talk about changing behavior, right? So I came in, and obviously we had a lot of things going on, a lot of things need to be fixed, but I thought, okay, how can you really dumb it down? And as far as I could tell, like, there were some sales calls, but there might be like 3 or 4 a week. So I said, okay, let's set a goal of 10. Should be kind of 8 to 10. If I can go on that, everybody else should be able to. So on the one hand, it was a pain in the ass for me, but it kind of really just helped to kind of evolve it. And then I don't know if you knew, but then we do this kind of, what are you going to do more? Yes, do the sales call champ. But it, first was kind of somewhat joking, but then it kind of really evolved into something that was a serious mantra. I'm like, okay, forget everything else. If you just do the sales calls, then you got
Yeah.
pipeline and everything, you got orders and everything else. So that's the story behind the story.
Yeah, no, well, and now with sort of modern tools as well, you pretty much know what your sales teams are doing. And
Yeah,
I mean, when I was a sales manager back in the day, when I first worked for one of my sales managers, you had to be in the first thing in the morning and last thing at the end of the day, and was basically to report out what you'd done in the day. And now sort of the world has evolved. You don't need to check in with people every day to understand what they're doing. But
yeah,
as you say, like, if you just keep attending to that as a core principle, you won't go too far wrong.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You got Gong and other, kind of great technologies out there as well.
Yeah,
So a
it's
couple quite, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say it's pretty impressive the amount of again intelligence that's getting brought to the sales profession. How this. I mean, I spent some time with a company that looked at sort of sentiment analysis during a video call. I mean, it's pretty impressive, and so you don't need to lisp if you're a sales manager for a digital sales rep. It used to be the case that you spent a whole morning with them listening to make sales calls. Now you just get a file, and it shows the sentiment analysis. You go straight to the place and said, look, what was the consequence of this
Yeah,
action, this sentence. So it's pretty amazing.
yeah, yeah. So, back, I think NCR, you said you started as an order analyst. You've had a front row seat to see kind of sales ops evolve to kind of rev ops, and some of the tooling there. Kind of what perspectives do you have?
Yeah, so I mean, we've done a lot of work with the tooling now. It used to be, you had an instance of Salesforce, and that was it. And now there's a whole suite of tools for prospecting, for outreach, for connecting with the new, in intersecting customers before they've reached out to you formally. I mean, it's well known that customers reaching out later and later in the sales cycle. So sales teams, being the creative individuals they are getting more and more judicious with what tools they use to intersect and understand what a customer's interested in before they reach out. So um, the revenue operations is a really big part of, I think, running a really good sales team. What do you instrument? What do you look at? What do you inspect? Trying to make sure you lose sight of the wood from the trees. And that's the role that Scott Wood does now. And he's because he's worked extensively in the sales function. He's very good at it.
Right.
But it's hard. I think it's an area that's really quite difficult to do very well. It's really easy to be overwhelmed with the amount of information we've now got and lose sight of what's important.
Yep. Yeah, totally. What about examples of sales leaders that you respect?
Well, I mean, I've had the privilege to work with a lot of great sales leaders. my current boss is very good. You can't go move on without making sure that's known. So Heiko Meyer, he's a
Heiko?
yeah, Heiko, he's I think a very a good sales leader. He quite different from many sales leaders in the respect that he he's not a grandstander. He's softly spoken, but he's an absolutely fabulous listener. And so he doesn't say a lot, but he gets to the nub of the heart of the problem quite quickly. So he's been very talented. But I've worked with Phil Davis, who's now at Google, and who was I found to be a good sales leader. One of my early mentors. I had a couple of really good sales leaders I worked for. A guy in the UK by the name of Mark Pilgrim, who's now retired, and he was my sort of first sort of really good sales manager. And yeah, I've had lots of people. I mean, try and take a bit of something from everyone is kind of my mantra.
Yeah, absolutely. What about mentors that you've had, and any nuggets? Maybe one or two of specific advice you received.
Yeah, so I mean, I did some work. I basically have a coach. I mean, I think most people do have coaches, but I paid for my own coach at a time when the company wasn't paying for it. And so I work with a guy called Asha Rika Kaizen, and he's based out of the UK, and they essentially help leaders with disrupting from within. A lot of disruption comes from small new companies, and this is about how do you kind of challenge the existing environment whilst being a part of it. And so I meet with him once every 3 months. It's a bit like it's a bit like a doctor's surgery for business.
Yeah.
I can tell him everything that I'm worried about or thinking about, and really, they just do. The talented people here do a great job of drawing out from you what is it what's the problem you're trying to answer,
Mhm.
and what's important. And I just find it a good practice to continue to sort of attune myself to what's important. And you see, again, it's easy to be distracted or by email or the demand of the day. You don't actually get anything done.
Absolutely. That's great. So from Jonathan Copeland, he asks, what makes a good technical pre-sales person? The tech skills or the sales skills, which can be trained and which needs to be inherent in the personality. So as we said before, the solution architect function at HP is so very crucial and such a strength of the company.
Yeah. So I mean, my wife is used to be a solution architect. She's now a technical writer, but I mean, I've been in
Wow.
and around those communities a long time. I've got a deep affinity for it. So I'd say that the foundation is you've got to have good knowledge, but that can be taught. Um, and you need to combine that with, as Jonathan says, good skills. Good skills are harder to teach. Um, of course, they can be learned, but I think they're harder than the knowledge. Um, as long as you've got the right curiosity. So, um, kind of for technical people, I think one of the things that really good technical people do is I mean, it sounds simple, they ask really good questions. They're really searching in getting to the nub of what's at the heart behind the question rather than diving down the path of sort of a technology interest conversation. So good listening skills, good questioning skills, I've always found in the best technical people, but built on a foundation of great knowledge.
Great. So last question for you. What advice would you give the younger Paul Hunter?
Worry less. um, Worry less and listen more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
great.
sometimes everything seems like a crisis when you're young. It's a crisis of urgency. Why haven't I done what I wanted to do by the age of 22? Why am I not ruling the world? Why are people not listening to me? And as you get older, you realize it's more about like, who am I working with? Am I enjoying myself? Do I find it rewarding?
Yeah.
Am I helping people? And your younger self doesn't really have that perspective.
Yeah. You did you overlap with Peter Ryan at all?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, I did,
So,
and I stay in touch with Peter. He's someone I will phone for advice.
yeah, great guy. I was with him at Sun, I think, yeah, Sun, and then
Oh
HP.
wow.
But the reason I bring it up is he'd always get asked in town halls, kind of what keeps you up at night. And he'd say, nothing. I go to sleep. I'm fine. I try not to worry too much, and it's going to happen. I mean, it's such a great,
Yeah,
great answer,
yeah.
right? Kind
No,
of
exactly. I think
zero worry less.
if you worry too much, it's an inhibitor. It definitively is an inhibitor
Yeah,
because you know, particularly as you progress or it gets more complicated, there's more to worry. There's more that can go wrong. So you just would end up worrying more, and the scale of the mistakes can be bigger. So then you end up
yeah,
worrying more. So if you haven't got Peter's attitude or some version of that, it's pretty
yeah.
hard. You need a counselor, and probably a lot of us do need counselors.
There you go. Anyway, so you've been great. Time flies when you have fun. So for those who've been watching, Paul Hunter, Senior Vice President, Managing Director at HPE for North America. For those that are members of the sales community, thanks. For those that are not, you can go to salescommunity.com, see a free link. And we're sponsored today by Gong, the revenue intelligence sponsor of Sales Community. So Paul, thanks. Really appreciate you squeezing us in here on a Friday, and wish you the best for the rest of today and a great weekend. And
Yeah,
Tucker,
thanks,
thanks for
Randy.
your help.
Yeah, great to speak to you, and go Alabama.
There you go. Roll Tide, as they say.
Roll Tide, thank you.
Roll
I need
Tide.
I need a
There
translation.
you go. Not War Eagle. That's off here. Roll Tide. All right. All right. Well, thanks a lot. Have a
Yeah,
good
thank
one.
you.